From Conor McGregor recently claiming to have almost died in a bike crash, to Daryl Horcher solely surviving because of his helmet, here are some of the fighters that survived terrifying accidents. Starting off with the ex-MMA maestro, Jose Aldo. The Brazilian was struck by a car in his hometown while riding his motorcycle. He was on his way back home when the crash took place. Thank God the driver was a sensible man. He immediately stopped the car to check on the fighter. While Aldo was mildly injured, there were some surprised fans who came asking for autographs. It's so absurd. Give the man some space to at least recover from the shock of the collision. Aldo escaped with some bruises and a hurt leg, but the real damage was the cancellation of his highly anticipated fight with Frankie Edgar. The main event of UFC 153 was in jeopardy. Many fans were disappointed with this news, but their disappointment came to an end when the pair decided to battle at UFC 156.
For the winner by unanimous decision, and now the UFC interim featherweight champion of the world, Jose Aldo.
The Brazilian kept training with his injured leg, which was quite risky, and then his manager stepped in. He stopped him from training that way and also asked him to avoid riding a motorcycle ever again. After all, it's a serious injury that he's carrying. Risking it would mean risking his whole career. Now, most of the accidents in this list are vehicular crashes, though the intensity of their damage varies. And Frank Mir had to taste the most bitter of medicines. Just when you think everything's going to plan, there comes a reality check, sometimes to humble you down, something that shows you're not actually in control.
Oh, Dustin now. Oh, he's getting taken his leg. Oh, he's got it. He's in time. Oh, that's a the tap. Dustin Poirier submits Michael Chandler in round 3.
Such a thing happened with the American MMA fighter. 2004 was a year of joy for the young fighter. He had just pulled off one of the most memorable submissions in UFC history on Tim Sylvia. He became the new UFC heavyweight champ and was about to get married to the love of his life in a few days. It was like his life was touched by an angel until that one moment that changed everything. On September 17, 2004, Mir's motorcycle struck a car as he was cruising through Las Vegas. The collision had Mir flung 80 feet from the spot. His femur was gone, his knee was destroyed, and Mir's toe had to be sewn back onto his foot. I wouldn't be surprised if you're getting sensitive visuals right now, but that shows the intensity of the damage that was caused. It took Frank 17 months of rehab to get back in control, and while his comeback was anticipated by many, he unfortunately couldn't make an impact. Frank was welcomed with a TKO loss by Marcio Cruz, but he wouldn't give up. Mir fought and regained the belt that was stripped off him due to his injury by becoming the first man to KO Big Nog. Now that's what I'd call a fairy tale comeback.
To Frank Mir! Can he get the submission? He's got him out! He tapped him! Frank Mir just tapped! Minute 12! Wow! Wow, indeed!
Daryl Horcher was fortunate enough for one too. On the 25th of May 2016, Daryl went out riding with his friends. He picked up his Kawasaki racing bike, which was the first one he'd bought new. Daryl and Kevin were cruising through rural Pennsylvania, carrying out hour-long loops, and everything seemed perfect until there was a severe accident. The two had a Ford Escape in front of them, appearing on the street like a glitch in a video game. Kevin barely dodged the car, but unfortunately, Daryl couldn't. He crashed into the car, and his bike exploded into many pieces. Kevin got hit by the shrapnel and threw him on the side of the road, but Daryl flew over the hood of the car and landed about 300 feet down the road. He was taken to the hospital by Lifeline helicopter. There was blood everywhere, and the doctor said he might never fight again. One thing that stood out was the fact that he wore a helmet that day, despite the Pennsylvania laws being chill about it. Later, his manager admitted that it was the helmet that probably saved his life. Goes to show how important it is to take the necessary safety measures. Horcher had a broken ankle, torn ankle ligaments, and massive scraping of the skin. He started his recovery regime after his treatment and returned to the octagon almost 13 months after the crash, and ended up defeating Devin Powell via a split decision. That was a memorable night to witness in Oklahoma. There's another accident involving a car crash, where the fighter is on a bike and on his way home. This time, it's Vanderlei Silva Silva, another Brazilian MMA artist who went through a terrible accident. He was cycling home from training in his hometown when he was hit by a car and left with a broken foot and some facial injuries. This time around, he had a helmet on, which saved his life, the way it did for Daryl. And also the driver stopped by to check up. I'll explain what I mean by this time around. Silva told in an interview that a similar incident took place in 2016, where he was riding his bike and got hit by a car. But that time, the driver didn't even bother stopping. He panicked and left the scene. Though in the recent incident, the guy helped Silva, put him in his car, and took him to get checked. The axe murderer underwent shoulder and knee surgery before he could make his comeback. While these incidents took place a couple of years back, Conor McGregor was involved in a crash more recently. McGregor avoided serious injury in January of 2023 after being hit by a vehicle, and you won't believe how it got announced to the public. He took it to Instagram to share a footage of the aftermath of the incident. I gotta admit, the guy is top class when it comes to promoting himself. He's posting a video claiming it to be a high-speed collision. He's out of breath and panicking while showing his broken bicycle in the middle of the street. McGregor said that he was hit from behind because the driver couldn't see him due to the glare of the sun. While he's messing around, the driver is absolutely freaking out. Can you imagine hitting the Notorious on the streets of Ireland? I'd be scared as heck. The driver was clearly apologizing in the video and admitted that he couldn't see a thing. McGregor asked him to take his damaged bicycle, put it in the back of his truck, and give him a ride home. He sounded as if he had no plans to press charges. Conor hasn't competed since July 2021.
Alvarez getting loose, getting better here in this round, though.
Oh, man.
Until that.
Oh, he's done. He's done.
History has been made. Conor McGregor is the UFC lightweight champion.
And fans are waiting for his next fight. The news of the accident went quite viral on social media and brought him back into the picture. There's a possibility that he might capitalize on the PR and announce his next fight. Who knows? Conor survived the scene with relatively few injuries. But that wasn't the case with Emmanuel Newton. The incident is from 2007 when Newton was on his motorcycle. He was racing a car alongside him that got out of control and bumped into his bike. The two were at the speed of 240 kilometers per hour, and a slight nudge from the car threw him on the ground. His wrestling training came in handy as he rolled away from the skidding bike, but by that time, a lot of the bones in his arm had been damaged. That's not the bad news. Of course, there were surgeries that took place, and the doctors were almost forced to amputate his arm. They gave him no hope to return to wrestling.
Look at that uppercut. Now, Marcus over the top, looking to finish it here. Conor McGregor, another first-round win. Wow! Ultra-impressive UFC debut.
But he fought back harder than ever and made his comeback a little over a year later. Newton came back in style, winning both of his first two fights since the accident. And that's it on all the fighters that survived terrifying accidents.